Battle through the heavens. Xiao Yan's expression became increasingly more solemn upon hearing Sun Er's words. It was indeed as Yao Lao had said. The implication of the Dou Qi ancient god's jade was indeed too great. Dou Di, this was a form to address the ruler of this world. The value of anything even the least bit related to this name would soar. This point was something that could be identified from just watching the Dou clan. The blood of a Dou Di flowed in the bodies of the members of the Dou clan. This had resulted in the current position of the Dou clan on the Dou Qi continent. Although no one dared call it unique, it could definitely be considered among the peak. Therefore, before Xiao Yan Ge has absolute strength, you must not expose the Dou Qi ancient god's jade in your hands. Sun Er's expression was unusually grave when she spoke. The current Xiao clan had declined. Even though the ancestors of the Dou clan and the Xiao clan had an agreement, there was currently a great difference in opinion in the Dou clan regarding this matter. If this matter were exposed, it was difficult to be certain that some experts in the Dou clan would not privately do something. At that time, Xiao Yan would be in danger. Xiao Yan slowly nodded as he studied Sun Er's grave expression. He softly said, "The reason the Hall of Souls captured my father is also due to this." Sun Er gently nodded and replied, "The Xiao clan could once be considered a top-tier faction on the Dou Qi continent. At that time, the strength of the Xiao clan was something that even the Ice River Valley had difficulty comparing with." Surprise flashed across Xiao Yan's eyes when he heard her. He had never expected the Xiao clan have once been brilliant. Unfortunately, following the flow of time, the Xiao clan gradually declined. After which, some of the ancestors of the Xiao clan could only leave the Central Plains and finally settle down in the Jia Ma Empire. Sun Er softly explained, following the decline over these generations, other than a few members of the Xiao clan, everyone else, including the younger generation, is unaware. Xiao Yan slightly nodded. By being able to develop the Xiao clan to that extent, it is likely that the ancestor of the Xiao clan back then was someone with extraordinary strength. Cuckoo, that ancestor of the Xiao clan was indeed an absolutely brilliant person. Within a short few hundred years, he stood at the peak of the continent. There were only 4 people on the entire continent who were a match for him. Sun Er smiled as she told Xiao Yan more. She appeared to be aware of what Xiao Yan was thinking after watching his expression. Even though Xiao Yan was already prepared, he still could not help but feel stunned when he heard her words. There was only 4 people in this vast continent who could compare with him. This achievement was indeed shocking. It is unexpected that this ancestor possessed such an achievement. Xiao Yan felt as though his blood was boiling by just imagining this. The talent of that ancestor is something that even the Dou clan greatly admires. Under his leadership, the relationship between the Xiao clan and the Dou clan were very good at that time. This alliance agreement was also formed at that time. Sun Er smiled as she added more. Alliance agreement? Xiao Yan grinned. His smile was a little cunning and pleased. However, they did not expect to not only fail to obtain the Dou Qi ancient god's jade, they did not know they would lose an even more precious treasure. What? Sun Er was startled after hearing his words. After seeing Xiao Yan's crafty smile, she finally understood what Xiao Yan was saying. A lovely, embarrassed color immediately flew onto her face. That's right, what is the name of the ancestor of the Xiao clan? Sun Er's lovely, embarrassed expression had stirred a nefarious flame within Xiao Yan's lower abdomen. He parted his mouth slightly as he hurriedly suppressed it. He did not wish to scare off this little lady, who appeared cold and indifferent to others, but revealed lovely embarrassment in front of him. Sun Er's hand parted a thread of black hair in front of her. She covered her mouth and softly laughed. Why? Are you planning to view this ancestor as an idol? He is my ancestor. I am his descendant. How will it look if I don't even know the name of his elderly self? Xiao Yan rolled his eyes as he replied. Sun Er slightly smiled and softly replied, that ancestor of the Xiao clan is called Xiao Xian. Xiao Xian. Xiao Yan repeated this name in his mouth before laughing. He is indeed worthy of being an ancestor of the Xiao clan. His name is really domineering. Sun Er rolled her eyes at Xiao Yan. Her enchanting manner caused him to stare at her without diverting his eyes. After having not seen this girl for a couple of years, it appeared that her appeal was growing. Her frown and smile were all filled with a natural charm that was difficult to hide. The ancient tomb of Xiao Xian is in the Gu realm. However, that ancient tomb possesses a mysterious strength. Those from the Gu clan cannot enter it. Although some of those with extremely powerful strength within the Gu clan could forcefully enter it, they did not dare to randomly barge in, especially since this Xiao Xian ultimately did the Gu clan a favor. Therefore, no one has been able to enter this ancient tomb after so many years. Sun Er's eyes wandered when she spoke until this point. She looked at Xiao Yan and voiced her thoughts. If I have guessed correctly, it is likely that only you, a member of the Xiao clan, can enter it. If you have the opportunity to head to the Gu realm, you might perhaps go and take a look. You could end up gaining something there. Xiao Yan's expression became a lot more serious after hearing her words. He said in a solemn voice, I will naturally have to make a trip to the tomb of an ancestor. Once I have sufficient strength in the future, I will move the tomb of the ancestor to the Xiao clan and get the descendants of the Xiao clan to worship him day and night. It is likely that Elder Xiao Xian would feel very pleased if he heard your words. Sun Er softly laughed. Immediately, she appeared to have recalled something and said, That's right, it is best that you do not spread the word that you are the descendant of Elder Xiao Xian. Although the Xiao clan shined brightly on the continent for a period of time back then, it had also offended some powerful factions. Some of those factions still exist even today. If they were to discover this, it is likely that they would bring you some trouble. Are these factions as strong as the Ice River Valley? Xiao Yan fondled his chin and asked. Xiao Yan rubbed his head, feeling a little speechless. This was indeed worthy of being the Central Plains region. It did live up to the phrase, hidden dragons and tigers. Xiao Yan Gege, Sun Er will not be able to stay long during this trip. Otherwise, I would bring you a lot of trouble. You will have to rely on yourself for everything after I leave. Hence, you must not be reckless. Sun Er gently rubbed Xiao Yan's face and worried about him. Upon hearing that Sun Er was about to leave, Xiao Yan involuntarily tightened the grip of the hand he used to hug her narrow waist. His eyes stared intently at this lovely face in front of him as he asked, When can I head to the Gu realm to look for you? Sun Er involuntarily lifted the corner of her lips into a sweet arc when she heard his question. She replied, As long as you have confidence in yourself, you can come anytime you like. No matter what happens, all Xiao Yan Gege needs to know is that Sun Er will stand on your side. Xiao Yan slowly nodded upon hearing her words. He tightly hugged Sun Er and softly said, Relax. I know just how many challenges and how much trouble I will face when I head to the Gu realm. I will not be reckless because I want them to know that your eyesight is the best. Since the ancestor of the Xiao clan back then was able to get the entire Gu clan to respect him to such an extent, Xiao Yan believed that he would sooner or later be able to reach that level. At that time, it was likely that no one within the Gu clan would be able to stop him even if he wanted to be together with Sun Er. Sun Er smiled as she lowered her snow-white chin. She was unconcerned about how strong Xiao Yan was, but she was afraid that Xiao Yan would be discriminated against and receive the supercilious eyes of members of the Gu clan if he did not possess sufficient strength. Xiao Yan lowered his head. He looked at the enchanting smile in close proximity. This bewitching smile would only bloom with such an allure in front of him. Xiao Yan stared intently at Sun Er. A fiery heat had involuntarily surfaced in his eyes. His hand, holding Sun Er's waist, involuntarily moved. After which, it broke through her clothes and touched her jade-like, warm, smooth. Sun Er's face immediately turned fiery hot as she sensed Xiao Yan's hand creating a mischief. However, a fog seemed to be ripping through her autumn water eyes at this moment. There was a dryness in Xiao Yan's mouth as his throat rolled a little. The nefarious flame in his lower abdomen earlier had suddenly surged, causing a lustful flame to materialize in his eyes. Sun Er's face became more and more crimson with embarrassment as she sensed the change in Xiao Yan. Due to the slowly moving hand of Xiao Yan on her waist, she let out a slight moan. The two lips made contact. That gentle creamy feeling suddenly caused both of their bodies to become fiery hot at this moment. Xiao Yan's body was stiff for an instant before it was enveloped by an even denser, more lustful flame. He took the opportunity presented by Sun Er's stiff body to force his tongue in. He was just like a bandit that was plundering wantonly. Sun Er was similarly shocked by Xiao Yan's boldness until her mind became much blurrier. Only after Xiao Yan had barged in did she reflexively begin to struggle. However, the current her appeared exceptionally weak. Her frightening strength, where her punch could penetrate space itself, seemed to have completely disappeared at this moment. The lustful flame burned within Xiao Yan's chest. His roaming hand around Sun Er's waist involuntarily climbed. A moment later, it finally touched a softness that caused one to brace one's attention. The soft touch was just like a spark that lit the fuse of some explosive. Xiao Yan's hand quietly undid her green clothes, revealing her snow-like skin. Young miss, the old me has something to discuss with you. A dry elderly cough suddenly sounded outside of the door just when Xiao Yan was about to gradually peel everything off of the person in his embrace. The elderly voice was clearly transmitted into the room. This elderly voice contained a powerful Dou Qi that seemed to explode beside Xiao Yan's and Sun Er's ears, suddenly waking the both of them from a state of being lost in passion. Xiao Yan also recovered his mind at this moment. He helplessly spread his hands as he looked at Sun Er's embarrassed anger. After which, he awkwardly said, "That, it is not my fault, ugh, no." Ugh, Xiao Yan tried to defend himself before eventually lowering his head, dispirited. He did not expect his self-control to be this poor in front of Sun Er. Sun Er's lovely and enchanting face involuntarily revealed a smile when she saw the dispirited Xiao Yan lowering his head. However, this smile was quickly withdrawn by her. Her body hid under the blanket as she hurriedly put on her clothes amid a trudging sound. After which, she softly said, "You rascal, you are actually having such crooked thoughts." Xiao Yan raised his head. He moved his lips and muttered with a helpless face, "What can I do against Sun Er's allure, but a moment ago?" "Don't say it." Sun Er's face once again turned red. She hurriedly extended her hand and blocked Xiao Yan's mouth. However, he ended up grabbing her hand instead. She thought that Xiao Yan was about to do something bad again when she saw a love that could not be hidden in his dark black eyes. The bright redness on Sun Er's face became much paler under Xiao Yan's eyes. She bit her lower red lip with the back of her teeth as hesitation flashed across her eyes. Immediately, she abruptly lowered her head and gave Xiao Yan's face a superficial peck. Xiao Yan Ge, the bloodline in Sun Er's body has yet completely awakened. I cannot perform any intercourse. Otherwise, the consequences would be very serious. Wait until we meet again, alright? Sun Er felt her head explode when she spoke. Even she could not imagine that she would utter those words. Immediately, she ceased saying anything else to Xiao Yan. Her body moved and she rushed out of the room. Xiao Yan gently clenched his hand as he studied Sun Er's figure. The creaminess from earlier seemed to have remained. This old fellow interrupted something good. How inconsiderate. While Xiao Yan was quietly muttering under his breath, the two black-clothed, old men outside the room were walking up and down just like ants in a hot pot. Their eyes appeared a little red. They had been protecting Sun Er all this while and had naturally discovered that she had suddenly come to Xiao Yan's room earlier. They did not think much of it, but following the flow of time, they seemed to have sensed something amiss. Xiao Yan and Sun Er were both young. Now that they had reunited, they were just like dry wood and a strong flame, igniting upon contact. The two of them continued walking back and forth in front of the entrance. A moment later, they suddenly came to a halt. Their eyes looked at each other and saw the red eyes of the other party. Finally, they nodded. They suddenly turned their bodies and forcefully pushed the door. Creak. Their hands were about to make contact with the door when the door was suddenly opened. Sun Er's figure appeared in front of the two of them. Young miss. The two black-clothed, old men were a little agitated when they saw Sun Er coming out. Their old eyes contained an impulse to cry. If this young man and woman were a little impulsive, it was likely that the entire Dou clan would become crazy. Seeing the appearance of these two, Sun Er's face, forcefully maintaining a cold and indifferent look, involuntarily reddened a little. However, her voice appeared exceptionally calm. "Old Lin, what are the both of you doing?" The corner of the white-haired, old man's mouth slightly twitched. He immediately asked with a faltering voice. "Young miss, you and Xiao Yan didn't do anything, right? What nonsense are the both of you thinking?" A bright redness once again surged onto Sun Er's face after being asked so directly. She viciously stared at the two of them while feeling some guilt. After which, she pushed the two of them aside and hurried back to her room. The two black-clothed, old man finally sighed in relief after hearing her words. "There doesn't seem to be any change in young Mrs. Aura. It is likely that she did not do that," the white-clothed, old man observed Sun Er in the distance. He rubbed the cold sweat off his forehead and spoke. "That is because the both of us had come in time. Given young Miss' character, would her ears have become so red if nothing had happened? Fortunately, they did not reach that stage." The black-clothed, old man rubbed his heart, which had been beating like a drum, while bitterly laughing. "Ugh, fortunately, if it really reached that point, the both of us would be sinners of the Dou clan," the white-haired, old man sighed. Even with the calmness of the black-clothed elders, some palpitations involuntarily surged into their hearts when they thought of the importance of Sun Er to the Dou clan. They immediately glanced at Xiao Yan's room with vicious looks. After which, both of their bodies moved and they slowly disappeared from in front of the room. What occurred tonight was likely the most alarming experience of their lives. Xiao Yan softly sighed and inhaled a deep breath of air, gradually calming his mind in the process. After gradually calming his mind, the golden-colored scroll that Sun Er had given him appeared in his hand. Inside it was the last 3 seals of the God Seal skill. Xiao Yan was extremely interested in this God Seal skill. Based on what was recorded on it, if he mastered all 5 seals, its strength would be comparable to that of a Tian-class Dou technique. Xiao Yan was unclear about the might of a Tian-class Dou technique. However, he was able to obtain some clues from the 5-ring flame expelling technique. With the help of this Dou technique, he had used his own strength to defeat Tian Shi and Bing Xian, the expert trio from the Ice River Valley. The result of the battle was indeed glorious. Xiao Yan held the golden-colored scroll and played with it a little. After musing, he did not immediately begin to practice it. Instead, he returned it to his storage ring. After his conversation with Sun Er, Xiao Yan had gained a more complete understanding of the importance of strength. A Dou technique can be practiced any time. Raising my strength is the most important thing. Xiao Yan's expression gradually turned grave. His hands suddenly pulled apart his clothes, revealing the black-colored vortex of the demon poison spot. In the past, he had been afraid that the swift increase in his strength would result in his foundation being unstable. However, after using the Skyfire 3 mysterious change, Xiao Yan gained some control of the strength of energy on higher levels. Hence, it was time to completely resolve this demon poison spot. Xie Bai Yan, I shall now unceremoniously accept the great gift you gave me back then. Xiao Yan's hand gently rubbed the demon poison spot on his chest. A cold smile surfaced on the corner of his mouth. He swiftly crossed his legs and sat down. With a change of the seal formed by his hands, the jade-green flame within his body furiously began to burn. After which, it wildly charged to the location of the demon poison spot. The interior of the demon poison spot contained all of the Dou Qi of Xiao Yan. Back then, Xiao Yan had been a 2 to 3 star Dou zone no matter how one put it. Although the current demon poison spot was no longer complete, Xiao Yan's strength would definitely soar if he could successfully refine all of it. This situation was something that Xiao Yan was happy to see. The current him needed sufficient strength. Without strength, everything was just unrealistic plans and empty talk. The jade-green flame turned into a storm within Xiao Yan's body with just a thought from his mind. After which, it gathered around the demon poison spot. The high temperature caused the poison to wiggle continuously. Wave after wave of faint black fog spread out. Currently, the demon poison spot had already lost its qualification to act fearlessly within Xiao Yan's body like it did in the past. Back then, it was able to completely ignore the glazed lotus heart flame. However, with the increase in Xiao Yan's strength, the little fire seedling back then had turned into a large being. The demon poison spot appeared just like a herd of goats that had been targeted by a pack of wolves when the jade-green flame that surrounded it. It felt as though it was trembling. It was able to sense that its good days had come to an end. Xiao Yan's mind coldly smiled as he observed this demon poison spot. Back then, this thing had tortured him until he had suffered. Now, however, it had become nourishment to raise his strength. Refine. Xiao Yan cried out softly within his heart. Immediately, the jade-green flame, surrounding the demon poison spot, suddenly rotated at a high speed. Numerous fire seedlings swarmed over from all directions like a countless number of fire threads, forcefully cutting the demon poison spot into many portions. Following the separation of the demon poison spot, a thought passed through Xiao Yan's mind and the glazed lotus heart flame was also separated. It wrapped around the many tiny demon poison spots and began to separate and refine them. Xiao Yan's eyes were tightly shut within the room. Wisps of jade-green flames slowly rushed out of his skin, gradually increasing the temperature of the room. As more time passed, the poison contained within Xiao Yan's body was gradually turned into nothing under the refinement of the glazed lotus heart flame. After the demon poison spot was refined, the waves of pure Dou Qi hidden within the poison would surge out. After which, they flowed like floodwater through Xiao Yan's veins, causing his body, which had originally been exhausted of Dou Qi, to be swiftly filled. His aura was slowly recovering to its peak. With Xiao Yan's current strength, it was not too difficult to refine the demon poison spot. Everything proceeded smoothly and naturally. All he needed was time. Time was just like water and one could not afford to squander it. Xiao Yan was unaware that 3 days had passed during this refinement. Sun Er and the others had come to find him during these 3 days and found that the tightly shut door was a little strange. It was fortunate that they were not reckless people. After sensing the hot air pouring from the room, they could guess that Xiao Yan should be training. Hence, they did not forcefully disturb him. It was also because of this that some of those factions with ill intent for the Yi clan did not dare do anything for now. Even the experts from the Ice River Valley ended up leaving in a dispirited manner. There was no need to even talk about them. By relying on the reputation of Xiao Yan's group, the Yi clan had also enjoyed a period of silence. It had been a long time since the Yi clan had enjoyed being the focus of everyone's attention. Xiao Yan sat on the bed in a room steaming from hot air. Perspiration vaporized from his pores, causing his clothes to tightly adhere to his skin. At this moment, his face had also turned an unusually flushed red. The originally fist-sized demon poison spot on his chest had transformed into a tiny black spot. One could even vaguely see a faint green flame surrounding this tiny, black spot. Wisps of white fog were emitted from Xiao Yan's nose as he breathed. At this moment, Xiao Yan's breathing had become unusually mighty. The majestic Dou Qi within his body was just like a surging flood, carrying a gushing sound as it swiftly flowed through his veins. The injuries within his body, that had appeared as a result of using the Skyfire 3 mysterious change, were fully healed. Moreover, his condition was even better than before. The vast and mighty Dou Qi whizzed as it flowed within Xiao Yan's body. It seemed to vaguely possess a fierce momentum as though it was pushing through a bottleneck. Following the more and more powerful Dou Qi within his body, Xiao Yan's body turned a flushed red. Tiny threads of Dou Qi pillars erupted from countless pores all over his body like steam. Crack! The Dou Qi rotated at high speed. This continued for a moment before Xiao Yan's body suddenly stiffened. A slight sound that appeared as though it did not exist rang out from deep within his soul. I have broken through to 3 stars, huh? Xiao Yan's tightly shut eyes slowly opened at this moment. There were some traces of a jade-green flame flowing within his black eyes. Xiao Yan lowered his head and looked at his chest. The demon poison spot had yet to be completely refined. He was still able to see many small, black-colored spots. The agglomeration of Xia Bai Yan's lifetime of Dou Qi was not a small sum. Currently, my body is in its best condition. It is really a pity if I give up like this. Xiao Yan looked at the small, black-colored spots. He hesitated for a moment and did not immediately end his training condition. Instead, he once again shut his eyes, directing his mind. Since he had already refined the spots to such a state, he should completely resolve them. However, he wondered if the Dou Qi that remained in the demon poison spot would allow Xiao Yan to advance to a 4-star Dou zone. The remaining demon poison spot was unable to hold out against this refinement by Xiao Yan. Within half a day, the tiny black spots completely disappeared from Xiao Yan's chest. Only at this moment did the demon poison spot, that Xia Bai Yan had planted within Xiao Yan's body, completely vanish. If that old fellow in the underworld came to be aware that his demon poison spot had not only failed to take Xiao Yan's life but had instead aided the advancement of Xiao Yan's strength, it was likely that he would be extremely furious. After refining the remaining bits of the demon poison spot, the pure Dou Qi that remained flowed through Xiao Yan's body. There might be a great amount of Dou Qi, but it did not reach the point where he showed signs of breaking through to the 4th star of the Dou Zone class. The gap between the levels in the Dou Zone class were extremely large. It was not an easy matter to raise one's strength even if Xiao Yan possessed a training nourishment like the demon poison spot. Xiao Yan frowned slightly. He sensed that the energy in his body was just a nudge away from being able to touch the barrier between the levels. He had underestimated the enormous energy needed for his strength to leap forward by 2 stars. It was unexpected that even the demon poison spot had failed to satisfy this squandering. I already feel that I am able to touch the barrier of a 4-star Dou zone. If I give up now, it is impossible to tell just when I will have such a feeling in the future. Xiao Yan sighed. At this moment, the arrow was already strung on the bow. It did not allow him to relax. Since the Dou Qi within the demon poison spot had already been completely refined by him, he would have to provide himself with the necessary resources. Xiao Yan opened his mouth and exhaled as he looked at these medicinal ingredients. A mouthful of jade-green flames surged out and wrapped around all of these medicinal ingredients. Bang! Bang! These medicinal ingredients split apart after being surrounded by the flame. Wave after wave of powerful fire affinity energy spread out of them, filling the interior of the room. According to common sense, the energy within medicinal ingredients cannot be directly absorbed by a person. Moreover, it was indeed a waste to use the energy within medicinal ingredients like this. However, at this moment, Xiao Yan did not have so much time to refine all of them into medicinal pills to consume. If he wasted them, then so be it. In any case, he needed to possess sufficient energy to successfully break through to a 4-star Dou zone today. Xiao Yan nodded only after sensing the surging energy that filled the room. He once again shut his eyes. With the support of this energy, he should be able to successfully reach the level of a 4-star Dou zone. While Xiao Yan was trying his best to raise his strength, over 10 black shadows were accompanied by a bloody wind as they flew across the sky over 500 kilometers from Yi City in a wild manner. A man was standing with his hands behind his back on a four-winged single-horned beast right at the front. The man was extremely handsome, but there was a gloomy expression on his face as his eyes stared at the distant northern horizon. Commander Ling Quan, based on the information we have obtained, young Miss should be in Yi City in the Pill region. A man in purple-black robes respectfully reported from behind the handsome man. Ling Quan was a familiar name. This person was the commander of the so-called Black Submerged Army, who had a conflict with Xiao Yan back when he had taken Sun Er away from the Inner Academy. Ling Quan. That trash from the Xiao Clan is also there, right? Ling Quan faintly asked. A dark and solemn fury flashed across his eyes. Hearing this, the person behind hesitated for a moment before nodding. Ling Quan was expressionless. His eyes looked to the north while his fists slowly tightened. A ferocious expression flashed across his eyes. Little trash, I gave you a warning back then to keep your distance from young Miss. Looks like if I do not give you an unforgettable lesson this time around, you will not put this commander's words in your heart.